Hi there and welcome to the Dietary Restriction Kitchen. I'm Nat Ryan. Today we're going to continue the pumpkin theme that I have going for the month of October at the Dietary Restriction Kitchen. Today we're going to make pumpkin protein bars. Now these bars are not the kind of bars that you take with you when you go on a ski trip or you're hiking in the mountains or something. These bars are kind of like an alternative to cookies. So instead of making cookies, you're making in a bar. So you're making it in a big rectangular pan, and they are kid tested and approved. As long as you put something like chocolate chips in it or whatever, the little kids will eat it. My daughter and her friends loved these when they were younger. And so we're going to make those. And it's really simple. We're going to make them gluten and dairy free, absolutely delicious, and lots of variations that you can do. So let's get started on that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, is we're going to grease our 9 by 13 pan with some vegan margarine. So that makes sure that it has no dairy in it whatsoever, even to grease it up, okay? Because a lot of margarines, if you're not aware, you may not be aware, a lot of margarines still put milk ingredients in them. I think they do that because they want to have that still that same creamy texture that butter has. And so they will put milk ingredients. If you have to be dairy free, that could be a bit of an issue. So now we're going to grease that up. Look, I need a little bit more because I'm a little bit concerned on the sides here. Do not want it to stick to the point of I can't get it out. Now you can use a Pyrex pan like I'm using, or you can use, just any kind of 9 by 13 pan will work fine with that. And so a big rectangle, a fairly large rectangular pan, and there you go. And that's our first step. So now that we've greased the pan, we're going to mix up the dry ingredients. We're going to start with some gluten-free 1-to-1 flour blend. So like the kind that I like to buy is Bob Red's Red Mill. Okay, so it's 2.5 cups of that, so it's quite a bit of there. Okay, we're going to have some sugar. We're going to have baking powder and baking soda. And we're going to have some cinnamon, ginger, and ground cloves. So that all goes in together. And we're going to take a spoon. So I'm just reaching back here for my spoon. We're going to mix that up all together in a medium bowl. If you want to, you can take a whisk. You know me. If you've been watching any of my videos, you know that I am whisk happy. I love using my whisk. But for this, I don't quite think I need it. I'll just use the spoon. And we'll just mix that thoroughly together. And it starts to smell nice already because it's very, pumpkin spicy already because of those nice spices in there. Cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves. Very nice. So there we go. All mixed up together. And then we're going to set that aside. Okay, so in a large bowl, we're going to put 2 eggs in, and we're going to give them a light beating. Okay. Here's using my whisk again. You know me. Okay. So we're going to do that. So that's the 2 eggs in there, just lightly beaten. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add about 1/2 cup of mashed or pureed sweet potato. Now, you could actually use applesauce, and the sugar that we put in earlier with the dries, you can always lower the sugar as well and put more applesauce. So, it's very versatile that way. We're going to mix that all in together. Okay, so I like to mix things one at a time in there. So this is mashed rather than pureed at this point, but that's okay. It'll work fine. And so going to be maybe a little orangey bits in there, but it's not going to be bad. And then we're going to put on a whole whack of pumpkin puree. Now this is canned pumpkin, not the pumpkin pie filling, in a can, but just pure pumpkin puree. Again, that I got from a can. You can make your own pumpkin puree as well. It is a bit time consuming to do that. It's quite labor intensive really to do it, but there is something satisfying about it if you want to make your own pumpkin puree, absolutely. So you can see that's still pretty thick, right? we are going to add, here's where we get our protein. We've got some cooked quinoa. So I'm going to do that, a half a cup. So it's not a lot, but this is where that protein comes into these bars, okay? So then we've got that going in there. So there we go. And we're going to put in some oat milk and put that in there. There we go. So it is quite thick. If you're feeling it's a little bit too thick to get to go in with that, and in my case, because of that, I feel like because I'm not using applesauce today, that I'm going to add just a little bit more of, just a dash more oat milk. So this is how you sometimes cook on the fly here, you know. Yeah, because sometimes I've used applesauce in here rather than sweet potato, and you know, this time I'm not using applesauce. Tends to be a little bit more liquidy, and obviously, so yeah, especially if it's an already jarred or canned applesauce. And that's what we've got. And next, we're going to put it all together. Okay, before we put everything all together, I forgot something, and that was the vanilla to put in there. But luckily, I noticed my vanilla is a clear vanilla, so I'm just going to pop that in, give it a little stir around, get that vanilla in there. Vanilla is a great thing because, you know, it has a great flavor on its own, but it also enhances other flavors as well, especially in sweet things. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that whisk. And then we're going to take our dry ingredients and we're going to pop them all in with this all at one time. So you don't need to, you know, do it a little at a time. You just pop it all in there at once. And then we're going to get that all mixed together. And that makes quite a bit of dough there, as you can see, like quite a bit of, almost like a cookie dough now. It's almost at the consistency, quite like a consistency of a soft cookie dough, right? And that's what you're looking for. So I'm kind of glad I added just that little tiny bit extra oat milk. And that was, like I say, because I wasn't using, I should say, applesauce, and then rather using, I'm just doing this to make sure I don't have any floury bits at the bottom here. Okay, and then we're going to add whatever we like in there. I'm adding some chocolate chips. Now, if you need to be, 1 second, I'll tell you that in a minute. And also, I had some dried cranberries left over, so I'm going to just pop those in. You could add whatever you like in here. If you're going to add chocolate chips in, or any kind of baking chips, and you need to be dairy-free, like you or somebody in your family needs to be dairy-free, or your friends, because maybe they have an allergy to dairy. If that's the case, then make sure that you buy chocolate chips or baking chips that do not have dairy in them. You got to be very careful with that and read the label, because a lot of them do. Another thing you can put in that is you can put in some raw pumpkin seeds. You could put in some coconut, some shredded coconut, some chopped nuts if you can eat nuts. Anything like that can go in there. And we're going to now put it in our prepared pan. So I'm going to pour that, pardon me, kind of making a lot of noise here. We're going to pour that into our prepared pan. It's quite thick. It is quite thick. We're going to get it smoothed out in a minute. Okay, I am going to grab my spatula. My handy dandy spatula over here. I love it because I can scrape that bowl, scrape the batter out of the bowl really, really easily with that. And I've got to tell you that this recipe didn't originate with myself. Okay, a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, her name is Katrina, first introduced me to this recipe. and gave me the recipe. Now, her recipe was not gluten and or dairy free. It wasn't, but I have adjusted it to do that. But a big shout out to Katrina. This has been a recipe that has been a favorite in my house when my daughter was younger, when she was like, 10 years old and even younger. I made these and for her and her playdate friends, and they loved them. And, like I say, if you put chocolate chips in it, most kids will like it, So, but they are good. They have a little bit of protein. And yeah, they're delicious. And I really like them as well. So that's that. And then we're going to put that in the oven. Okay, so now we're going to put those pumpkin protein bars in the oven to bake. It takes about a half an hour in a 350 oven. So we're going to put that in and let it do its thing for about a half an hour. Okay, so I've taken the pumpkin protein bars out of the oven. You can see that. It does rise a little bit. I'm going to test it using a tester, cake tester, what have you, or, and if it comes out clean like this has, then it is done. The other thing I'm going to do with this, while it's still a little bit warm, I have a little bit of chocolate chips left. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do something a little bit crazy here. You can do this. These are old chocolate chips, and I just really want to use them up. They have bloomed a little bit, but because it was kind of felt a little bit measly to me inside that, I just like going, put them on there and get them to melt, and then you can spread them a little bit. Truthfully, I could have thrown the rest of these chocolate chips right into the batter. I didn't, but right, it's going to make it a little messy looking at the top, but not to worry. What's really good is in the middle, and I'm going to be showing you that later, just as soon as this cools, and I can cut it for you and show you what a piece of that looks like. Absolutely delicious. Stay tuned for that. So there you have it. I let the protein bars, the pumpkin protein bars, cool completely. And then I cut them into, little bars, right? Or little squares. And like I said, I just opted to put the rest of my chocolate chips on top and let them melt up. You don't have to do that at all. If you have it this way with melted chocolate on the top and everything, it's a bit gooier, so you may want to eat it with a fork. If you want to just be able to give the kids some squares and they can just grab it in their hand and go, then I would forego putting anything gooey on the top. But you can see that it's lovely. I like to eat some with a little bit of Cocoa Whip. Really, really delicious. And they do have some protein in them, so it's sneaky getting in some good for you stuff in there, especially for kids. And I really hope you enjoy them. And thanks so much for joining me here today at the Dietary Restriction Kitchen. See you next time.